So, what's the most racist police force in the world, Nick?
I know, sir. Sir, I know.
Go
I know.
on.
The Met.
That's correct.
Excellent.
And they admit that they're the most racist police force as well, which is mental. I mean, one might have said, what about the LA police? Maybe they're slightly more racist. And, well, Harry would have issue with that. If you want to support us, go to lotus.com, sign up for a $5 for a month, and watch Harry's latest podcast about myth busting around the Rodney King and LA Riots event in the early 90s. Because there's been a lot of mythologizing of this. And Rodney King wasn't some sort of angel, believe it or not.
He was a criminal.
Yeah, he was, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that justifies what happened to him.
I saw the video. You can't justify what happened to him.
No. But you end up with the sort of, the mythologizing of a martyr, and he wasn't a martyr, But Harry takes issue with some of that, so it's a very interesting video. And there's a lot in there that I did not know, because it gets left out of these official narratives. But anyway, moving on to an actually racist police force. This has been dogging the Met Police for years. As you can see from this 2015 article, at the time, the chief of the Met Police was Mr. Hogan Howe, and under his watch, there'd been, he'd been repeatedly alleged that the Met was racist with Bernard Hogan Howe, and he said, well, there is some truth to it, actually. We are kind of racist, actually. Which is interesting. During an interview, he said, if other people think we're institutionally racist, then we are. It's no good me saying we're not and you must believe me. That would be a nonsense if they believe that. Okay. Guilty as charged.
Yeah.
He became the commissioner of the Met in 2011, and he pledged to repeatedly reform the force and restore public trust in officers. Yet Scotland Yard was dragged in several damaging rows over race, such as the shooting of Mark Duggan, that led to the 2011 London riots. In an interview for the Met, he conceded that young black men in London were very much more likely to be stopped and searched than young white men. I can't explain that fully. I can give you reasons, but I can't fully explain it, so there's some justification.
I can explain it.
Let's go back to that strong men and weak men discussion we were just having. The strong man would say they're committing more of the crimes.
Yeah.
That's why they are being more policed than other communities. You wouldn't budge on that point. You'd say, no, we're not racist. We're actually judging you specifically by the content of your character on this.
And here's the evidence for this.
Because it's not like we don't have the evidence. They've got all the statistics. But no, he was like, oh, if you say we're racist, then we're racist. I can't explain it. I can give you reasons, which you might think would have been the explanation, but I can't explain it. So here's some justification. We're sorry whether we're racist. The Met was, of course, sued in 2017 by a police officer who was like, yeah, they're racist. The allegation here was that she was held back while white colleagues were allowed to work more complex investigations. Not the biggest allegation of racism I've ever heard.
No.
I mean, it could have been something to do with you personally, but the thing is, I was looking for the conclusion of this. I couldn't find what happened with this. So we'll move over. But anyway, so in 2017, that was the year that Christina Dick took over. She became the first female head of the Metropolitan Police, completing a remarkable career comeback, considering she's terrible at her job. She oversaw one of the biggest disasters in policing in 2005 when Jean-Charles de Menezes was mistaken by police officers for being a terrorist because he was from Brazil, not from Arabia, and he was shot. And this was under her watch. It was her. She was in command of that.
Have you seen the video for that?
Yeah, it's awful.
He sat on the tube.
Yeah.
They walk up to him, shoot him dead.
Yeah. It's awful. Huh. And she was the one in charge of the operation. He wasn't Muslim or from the Middle East.
He was
from
an electrician he was going to work.
Yeah. And he was a Brazilian immigrant. Yeah. Anyway. So Cressida Dick, for some reason, I mean, not for some reason, but this was considered a comeback. And for some reason, she was given it. And it was Sadiq Khan who chose her. Sources close to Khan said that of the 4 candidates for the job, it was Dick who outlined the best vision for reforming the Met while keeping the capital safe. Dick accepts there needs to be changes. And it's like, so what are we taking from this? Very woke progressive Sadiq Khan was given a woke progressive spiel from a terrible police commissioner. And he was like, yeah, I'm going to go for the woke one.
We know I don't think there's anything to do with that. We know why she was given the job.
Go on.
She takes two boxes, female and gay.
How's that not woke?
No, but you said it was the spiel she gave at
Well,
the interview. I'm
sure,
just saying
sure.
she got it purely tick box
Yeah, yeah,
characteristics.
But yes, undoubtedly. But the thing is, it's not just tick box characteristics that is a requirement. It is also the ability to speak the shibboleths. You know, so okay, yeah. If it was, you know, a gay woman who came out and said, yeah, what we need is, you know, if it was like Swella Braverman or Priti Patel, he would have been like, no, never. You know, because she wouldn't have been on board with the agenda.
They never would have progressed up the ranks in the first place.
Exactly. But the point is, you are right. She ticks the correct boxes. She's gay and she's a woman, and she knows the lingo, and so that gets her the job. This not really good timing for Christina Dick. Merely 3 years later, 10,000 miles away in another continent, under someone else's jurisdiction, a police officer did something that people didn't like, and therefore riots in London. Because of course George Floyd died under the knee of a police officer. Now, I personally don't believe he was murdered, but then that's a different question. But this meant that Cressida Dick had to deal with riots in London. So she put out this statement: I recognise trust in the Met is still too low in some black communities, as is their trust in many other institutions. I feel very sorry about that. This is something I've worked to change, and I will commit to stepping up that work further. Blah, blah, blah. The challenge is to keep Londoners safe, be it a reluctance to share information, to report crime, or to support our work to tackle violence. Sadly, this leads to more black victims of crime. What's she saying there? She's saying that black people in London don't cooperate with the police. And we know this from the example of Sasha Johnson, a Black Panther activist who got shot by some black people at a house party at like 3 a.m. on a Sunday.
Yep.
And not one of them came forward. No one cares. It's okay. And so they met like, okay, well, what are we supposed to do? It's like, yeah, well, you're racist, aren't you? So she says, my two top priorities are reducing violence and increasing public confidence in the Met, particularly the confidence of the black, Asian and minority ethnic communities. Actions are more important than words, and as I've said before, we can do more and will do more. George Floyd's death was utterly awful, and we recognise the strength of feeling all over the summer here in London and elsewhere. I mean, okay, fine. So in 2022, there was a series of leaked WhatsApp messages that revealed that the Met Police are run by Ku Klux Klan incels. Details of messages from WhatsApp and Facebook groups, including multiple references to rape, violence against women, racist and homophobic abuse, were unveiled by the Independent Office for Police Conduct, who are apparently a congenitally progressive organisation. The officers, in their defence, said it was banter, but we all know there's no such thing as a joke.
That's how men bond.
Yeah.
Men insult each other all the time, and the closer friends you are, the worse the insults get.
They are. Yes, but you have to understand this is a police force that's being run by a woman. So she would see this and be like, oh, a progressive woman, no less. So she's like, well, that's racist, homophobic abuse. These police officers are terrible. She did say, however, she had no intention of leaving, even though she is presiding over an institutionally racist and sexist police force. She says, I have absolutely no intention of going, and believe that I am and have been actually, for the last 5 years, leading a real transformation in the Met.
And she's right.
I guess she is.
She's led it right downhill.
We'll get to how bad it's gotten very soon. She says, we have a service now, which I am absolutely certain, more professional, fairer, more transparent, more accountable, and closer to its communities, and more effective in, for example, reducing violent crime, as if, has been bucking the national trends, which is ironic, considering it was it 2020 that it became more dangerous than New York? Anyway, this scandal forced Cressida Dick to resign, because there's literally the only thing that we can say about the Met that's bad. Like, have we heard anything about the crime statistics or the arrest rate or the investigation? No, nothing, right? This is all about simply progressive talking points. Cressida Dick resigned this last year, February, after the Mayor of London accused her of failing to root out a culture of racism and misogyny. Dick suggested that she was forced out by Sadiq Khan, saying it was with huge sadness that following contact with the Mayor of London, it was clear that the Mayor no longer has sufficient confidence in my leadership to continue. This left me no choice but to leave. Khan had also put her on notice following the publication of the police watchdog report previously, and he said that Cressida had presided over a return to the bad days of the Met of his childhood in the 70s and 80s. Really?
Those 70s where hardly anybody was being stabbed to death on the streets of London. Those 70s.
Those 70s where London was like 90% English.
Hmm.
Those 70s. Right. Okay. That's interesting. So, how's it gone? Well, Cressida, under her tenure, actually did fire some people for being racist and sexist. If you go to the next one, there's a link here, so I'm just going to give you the stats rather than opening it up. Oh, you've got it up. Right, okay, fine. So when it comes to race and sexism misconduct, Cressida really went hard and ended up disciplining over the course of 2 years. 4 years. 26 people out of 10,000, I think it is.
Yep.
Right. Can't be that institutionally racist if that's all they could find.
And out of them, how many of them were dismissed? Only 5 of them were dismissed. The rest is written warnings, final written warnings.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, only 4 were dismissed.
Yeah.
Only 4. So, I mean, it's 7 in total, actually, over those 4 years. So, but the 26 cases that she investigated in total, very compelling. So the thing is, let's go to her diversity and inclusion strategy, because she understands that it's the composition of the force that is the problem. Too many English people is basically the issue. She says, London is the fastest growing and changing city in the UK. When faced with heavy criticism in the early 2000s following the inquiry of the murder of Stephen Lawrence, at that time 3% of our officers were from a black and minority ethnic background. 15% were female, and our policies and processes were challenged as being unfair, outdated and discriminatory. We have moved on. Over the past 17 years, diversity and inclusion within the police service in general, and the Met in particular, has transformed. Okay, let's see how that's working.
And their performance, when they have more diversity, is could there be a link here?
Well, performance is racist, right? So this is from the data that the government has given us, that I post out on Twitter. You can see on the very far right there, the overall aspiration for Asian, black and multiple ethnic heritage people is 40% of the force. Now, London is 37% English. The Met, however, is approximately 88% English. Isn't that strange? The current percentage of non-white people in the Met is 12.69% at sergeant level and 10.11% at inspector level. Why are the immigrants and ethnic minorities in London not joining the police force?
Because their parents want them to be doctors, solicitors, barristers, dentists.
Entirely possible.
Yes.
Entirely possible. I have no idea. But you can see the bind that the Met find themselves in, though, right? They're like, look, we want to interface with these communities, but these communities don't seem to actually want to join the police, and therefore you end up with a kind of two-tier ethnic policing system where you have English police over a majority-minority capital with a political framework that actively resents the English police. So no wonder that this isn't going very well. And
I'd state another problem. To attract more ethnic minorities and women, you then lower the bar. To attract more, so they'll pass the test and pass the fitness and the written test. So to employ them, which then you think, that's good, we've got more. But these people are not good enough to be police officers, so they end up failing, leaving or being disciplined, which then enhances the reputation of being racist, misogynistic and sexist. So
absolutely,
it's this cycle you're in, because weak people are making the wrong choices in leadership, which then creates all the problems below it.
That is exactly right. I mean, if you've got incompetent police officers who have been recruited from a community where you had to lower the standards, then not only are they going to reflect badly on that community, but they're also going to make the Met seem incompetent in that community as well. So, like, nobody wins outside of these diversity hires. The next one is the female recruitment. They want 50% female. They've got 23%, which, I mean, it's something, I suppose, but up on that 15%. But on the plus side, though, nearly half of people think the Met's racist because of non-stop left-wing propaganda. If you go to the next one. I mean, don't get me wrong, maybe it is. You know, they could only find literally 7 people to fire for being racist. But no, if 46% of the people think the Met is institutionally racist and only 25% think it's not racist, well, the court of public opinion, boom, guilty.
Why wouldn't you think it wasn't racist? Because all the top police officers are saying,
Yes, racist.
we are racist.
Yeah, literally all saying
so
it.
I'm surprised it's only as low as 46%.
Yes, I know. And, you know, I've got in no way am I inclined to defend the Met.
No.
Because it's run by a bunch of wokeists over a capital that's mostly foreigners. Not my problem. It's your problem. You made this. And so the latest reports on the Met Police has found it institutionally naughty in all the progressive ways. How dare they? So the Metropolitan Police is broken and rotten, suffering from collapsing public trust, and is guilty of institutional racism, misogyny, and homophobia, an official report has said. Well, then, what do you expect? It's been run by weak people for the last 20 years who have all admitted that it's all of the things it's being accused of, and have just lowered the standards in order to try and exculpate themselves from a sin that can never be cleaned away. Like you realize that from the progressive perspective, this will eventually boil down to, but the Met was created by white people.
The far left want rid of the police.
Yes, they do.
The hashtag defund the police really means dissolve the police. That's what it really means.
Of course that's what it means.
Yes.
You know, of course that's what it means. But the reason they hate the police as an institution, as a concept, is because the police are a product of Robert Peel, who was a white man. And so any amount of policing, ultimately at bottom, when you drive through all of these sort of, you know, this surface layers, they'll get to, well, the reason this institution is racist is because it was made by white people.
Yeah.
And so there is no satisfying progressive demands. Now, not my complaint. I don't live in London. If you guys want to live in literally a crime-ridden hellhole, it's not my taxes. But anyway, so the report by Louise Carey, commissioned after the Met, after one of its officers abducted Sarah Everard before raping and murdering her. Obviously, don't know why Christina Dick didn't find that guy's WhatsApp messages.
Yeah, and you can't judge a whole organisation by such an outlier, such an evil one-off person.
I can and will. No, you are right, obviously. Yeah. But no, but that's the thing, like, okay, all of these guys who are doing, you know, banter in their WhatsApp group, none of them are convicted, but the actual rapist and murderer, for some reason, wasn't saying that in the WhatsApp group. Isn't that weird?
And had 9 warnings previously. He'd come to the attentions of his bosses 9 times in his 20-year career.
Yep, and yet still, Cressida,
still was a firearm officer.
It's mad, isn't it? It's mad. Anyway, so this 363-page report detailed disturbing stories of sexual assaults, usually covered up or downplayed, with 12% of women in the Met saying they had been harassed or attacked at work, and 1/3 experiencing sexism. 12%. Seems remarkable. But you would think that something would have been done by the progressive leaders of the Met, but for some reason, despite all of the people at the top saying the same thing, nothing filters down.
That's such a ambiguous statement. It doesn't imply that she was attacked by fellow officers. She was attacked at work.
I think that is... well, yeah, that's a good point. I think they are trying to say it's by fellow officers, but maybe it's not.
Maybe it's just on the streets, yeah.
Maybe they've written it in an unclear way deliberately. Yeah. But anyway, the woman who wrote this, Louise Casey, pinned the primary blame on its past leadership and said the public respect has fallen to a low point. Londoners who do not have confidence in the Met outnumber those who do, and these measures have been lower among black Londoners for years. A lot to unpack there. But primarily, this comes from weak leadership, obviously, as we were talking about, but also the lack of fortitude to say where the disparate levels of crime are coming from. Okay.
And also cultural.
Yep.
If you speak to people in Africa, in Africa, do you have confidence in your police force? The answer is no, they're all corrupt, they're evil. So then they emigrate over here. We have a police force. Of course, they bring some of those cultural ideas here, as in, police, don't mess with the police. So some of it is that, and then you've got the Met bosses going, "Oh, we are racist anyway."
But then you also have the
propaganda,
sort of the Caribbean community that has this very insular view of justice. They don't agree, you know, like with the Sasha Johnson case, just the most open and shut case. Someone in the black community shot into this house, hit her.
Yep.
it's in every person in the black community's interest to find that person and report them to the police.
Not if it's not culturally acceptable.
But that's the point, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's exactly my point. The insular nature of this culture is like, look, we kind of want segregation from the wider community of London. It's like, okay, but then what can they do? Oh, you're a bunch of racists. Well, you can say that, but it doesn't matter. You know, if you won't cooperate with them, it doesn't matter how racist they are. They can't help you. You know, they can't do anything about this. But anyway, as Louise carries on, the Met has yet to free itself of institutional racism. And that's the real problem. Public consent is broken. The Met has become unanchored from the Peelian principle of policing by consent set out when it was established. Okay, but it wasn't set out with the people who live in London. I know this is like there's a canard I'm just going to keep hammering, but when Robert Peel set up the police in like 1890 or 1880 or whatever it was, London was like 95% English. The consent was about a kind of understanding between the people in charge and the cultural continuation of that community. This has changed. Like now, the remnants of the Met are floating on a sea of a mixture of different cultures, with a very small, you know, the minority of that being the original culture that was connected to. So the values embedded in the culture that are transmitted down generation upon generation that see the police through the lens of sort of Peelite policing. Well, there's a vast ocean of people who don't have any connection to that. And so they don't understand why you should cooperate with the police. They don't understand what the benefit of that is. And it's like, okay, well, this what can you do?
And every one of those cultures, if you asked them seriously, would all want policing differently.
Yeah,
To fit in with our culture. So
Yeah.
that neighbourhood, you need to police this way, this neighbourhood, that way.
Yep.
I've seen some of this firsthand in Greater Manchester when I worked with the police there.
Yep. And I'm sorry, that's just not on. You know, that's just not an acceptable way of atomizing and breaking up the country. We shouldn't do this. Anyway, Sir Mark Rowley, the police force commissioner since September, said he would not use the labels of institutionally racist, institutionally misogynistic, and institutionally homophobic that Casey insisted that they deserved. Okay, so the guy in charge is now like, yeah, I'm not going to call us that. And it's like, okay, but everyone has been doing that forever. And there's all these reports are saying because they're being done by leftists. I mean, Sadiq Khan is like, the evidence is damning. Baroness Casey has found institutional racism, misogyny, and homophobia, which I accept. Okay, well, then get rid of it. Defund it. Just abolish it. See what happens in London. See what happens. I'm sure it's going to be brilliant, right? Because, I mean, it's not like the police in London have been doing a particularly great job anyway, right? Since 2017, they've basically started abandoning investigating low-level crimes. Just, not our job. I mean, you would have thought it was their job, but the police are like, yeah, not my business. Don't know what you're talking about, right? This is because of a spending cut, obviously. But they said that they would no longer look into many reports of crimes, including burglaries, thefts, and assaults, where there was judged to be little prospect of identifying the suspect. Detective work? What do I look like, a cop? You know, of course I don't do that.
Those decisions have always been made in the police.
Yeah.
You know, 9 cases come in. 6 of them have got no name suspect. Well, they go on a back burner. Let's go for the 3 we've got a name straight away.
Yep.
Those decisions have always been made.
Yep. But the Deputy Assistant Commissioner, Mark Simmons, said, with the pressure on our resources, it's not practical for our officers to spend a considerable amount of time looking at something where, for example, the value of the damage or item stolen is under £50, or the victim is not willing to support a prosecution. Yeah, it's just a waste of our time because the community isn't really worth it and they're not going to cooperate with us anyway. Good. Turns out they ignored lots of crimes. If we can go to not the next one, but the one after, sorry. Yeah, this one. Scotland Yard dropped 54,000 burglary cases after 24 hours. This was reported in 2022 as well. So this isn't like historical.
Apart from rape, burglary, I would say, is the most important crime for the police to investigate if you ask members of the public.
Well, I would have said murder was probably top, but
most people are not worried about being murdered.
that's fair. Yeah, no, that's fair.
People are worried about being raped and people are worried about being burgled.
Between 2019 and 2021, just over 360,000 crime calls were screened out by the force in the 24 hours after they were made, meaning that after basic inquiries, detectives decided not to launch a full investigation. These included 38,000 violent offences, 11,000 reports of robbery, 118,000 theft allegations, 93,000 vehicle offences, and 364 sexual offences, including 10 reports of rape. Don't bother. Just, Someone stole something. Yeah, not a problem. The new commissioner in 2022 was like, I think we might actually attend burglary reports. So really, what a radical thing for the police to do. You phone them up and they turn up at your house and investigate. Apparently, the Metropolitan Police will get back to attending all reports of burglary in London, the new commissioner has said. He said it was unacceptable that the proportion of reported burglaries attended by an officer from the force had fallen to 50%. Literally flip a coin and see if the cops come out and deal with the fact that you were broken into. Unbelievable. But hardly anything was happening anyway, because only 4% of those investigated resulted in a charge of summons anyway. So you had a 96% of just getting away with it. It's remarkable. I mean, and then everyone's just like, yeah, but they're racist. Racist? They don't. The police are racist. They don't do any policing. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's just unbelievable. The complete collapse in standards. And as you rightly said, it is all due to moral weakness.
Moral weakness, poor leadership, people being promoted because they tick a box or because they're woke. Yep. And then the only bit I'm going to defend the police will be this bit. Constantly being told by politicians what they need to do and what their priorities are. Yeah. So, they're going to start looking at burglaries. Well, this time next year, like, forget burglaries, it's this. Yeah. And all that work that it takes to start looking at burglaries is all then dismissed. Yeah. We need to get the best leaders in the positions of power in the police and then say to them, do your job. Because you're a professional police officer, you know how to tackle crime. Do your job. Yep. Take the politics out of it. And that's what's ruining these police forces, politics.
But then the London mayor is literally a woke ideologue who got rid of another woke ideologue because she wasn't woke enough. Yep. What are you going to do?
He's in charge of the police. No one holds him accountable for the police. I know. He's the chief constable's line manager.
Yeah. And you would think, but the people of London, when given the opportunity, voted him back in. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well then you abolish the police. It's only a venerable institution with literally a century and a half of proven track record of service that was, and honestly, like, when I was young, we used to look at the police institutionally in a very positive light because of the principles it was founded on. It was very well respected. Now, look what they've done to it.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the premium videos we do, this one on Comics Corner number 5. If you'd like to find out what's being put out, you can follow us on Getter. You can follow at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.